All right, so we are now going to talk about word problems and really why we learned how to do this. So the last couple of days we've been talking about mode, median, range, trimmed mean, all this stuff, okay? But we haven't really talked about the purpose and what good it's for, okay? So we're going to go through a big example today and hopefully understand why these can be useful in theoretical real-life situations. So our goal is, if we're given a data set, which is a bunch of numbers like that, how can we figure out the reliability of the average and predict what's going to happen next? So this is an example data I made up, whatever. This is how much money you spend per week, okay, in dollars. So this person over 16 weeks, each of these is a different amount of money they spent. If you calculate the average, I did that already, it was $28.75. So normally, that helps us make a prediction. So if we wanted to make a guess about next week, we would predict it's going to be something around that. So probably something like $28-ish. But the problem is sometimes average has flaws because it's a very, very simplistic way of looking at it. Okay? We need to dig deeper and look at these other measures in order to find out, is this mean good? Is it bad? What do we know? So let's figure out the mode first. So mode means the one that happens the most often. So when we look through this, let's try and figure out which number happens the most. We could list them all out in order. And actually, yeah, let's do that because we need it for median. So first is 0. Then we got the tens. So the smallest 10 is 14. Then we got 15. Then two 17s. Oh, sorry, and another 15. 17. Then we got 4 18s. And then we got the 20s. So two 20s. 20. And then a 22 and a 23, then a 45 and a 180. Okay, that was all the numbers. So they're in order. So the mode is what's most common, and like we said, there were 4 18s, so the mode is 18. Now, when we did the mode, we found out there were 4 18s. That's pretty frequent, but not very high. If there was like 10 18s, that might make me guess, wow, that's probably what's going to happen for my prediction. But because it happens sometimes, but there was a lot of other numbers, I don't really care about this. The median, that's the middle number. So let's cross them off and find the middle number. So if I take off one from each side, one at a time, just like we did before. 18, so 18 is the middle number, okay? Again, this just helps us understand what the middle of the data is. And when I notice, is the median close to the mean? They're actually very far apart, which tells me there's some numbers that are screwing up our data, okay? Because there was this big difference, this makes me trust this less. Now, we gotta do the range. So the range is when you take the biggest number and the smallest. So 180 is the biggest, you subtract the smallest, 180. A range of 180 means there's a huge gap, which means that there's gonna be some numbers that are probably not very reliable. So that leads me to want to do a trimmed mean. So I want to cancel out some stuff. Now, trimmed mean, you usually just take off the top number. And so if we recalculated the average without these, the top and the bottom number, it's actually probably going to be a lot better. We could do more, but let's just take off those ones. So we're going to find the trimmed mean, which is the total of all those numbers we have left divided by the number of numbers. Okay, so we're going to add up all those numbers together. So 14 plus 15 plus 15 plus 17 plus 17 plus 18 plus 18 plus 18 plus 18 plus 20 plus 20 plus 22 plus 23 plus 45. Okay, that gave me 280, and there's 14 numbers left. So if I divide that by 14, it gave me 20. So now, that trimmed mean was a lot closer to the median, which tells me that this is probably pretty reliable. Because it was very far away from that normal average, again, that makes me think that wasn't reliable. So the whole point of doing all these calculations is so that, what does it mean? How can we make a prediction? So based on these numbers, I want to make a guess for next week. How much do I think I'm going to spend based on this data? So based on it, I would want to do something around the median or the trimmed mean, 18 and 20. So my guess would probably be 19. That's a pretty safe bet. If you wanted to give like a range, you would say maybe it's 18 or 20, somewhere in there. If we had said something like 2875, we'd probably be off. That number is just really high because of that stupid 180 that was in there. So the whole point of doing this and understanding how to do these different things is so that we don't just say, okay, I got the average, that's the best representation I have. Because after we looked at these other ones, we realized that average probably wasn't perfect. It was actually pretty quick information, and we need to go deeper to find it. There's one other example I want to show you that shows up in your work. Sometimes people list it like this. So instead of listing all the numbers in a row, you say how many there are. So if we were going to find this, see it says 2 employees have 103. That means that there's actually 2 people that are that number. Here it says 3, so there'd actually be 3 78,000s. Okay, here it says 5, so there'd be 5 54s. So that when you're doing the data, these are not all the same. There's a bunch of them, so you have to rewrite it out this way to understand what's happening. So we could do all the calculations with that if we wanted, but just so you understand, that's what that means. And that's it.